Hello, everyone. It is the three most beautiful women in the entire universe: Cindy Faulkner, Jessica M., and Ashley C. Craig. Okay. And we are getting ready to embark on a 35-minute podcast with Ian Morgan Cron and his sidekick, Anthony, on anxiety and the Enneagram. Ian Morgan Cron releases podcast every Thursday. His podcast is called Typology. He also has a Typology Institute. And in that institute, if you're a member, you get additional podcasts, one additional podcast a month that's only sent to the members, and then a live town hall a couple weeks later where people come in and he answers their questions live about that podcast. All right, so we're recording this, and simply because unless you're a member, you cannot access this podcast. And so don't tell anybody I'm recording it and sharing it with you, because they may send me to copyright jail. Okay, as I just said that out loud. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen.
Hey, Typology membership. Welcome to the Typology Membership Institute podcast, exclusive to you all, and something I love to do. We are now in mode to talk about anxiety. And one thing I know.
Can y'all hear that okay? Okay, good.
About anxiety is everybody understands what it is, and everybody experiences it. And I want to talk a little bit about anxiety through the lens of the Enneagram and how each type can kind of really begin to work with anxiety instead of against it. To work with anxiety instead of against it. I'm in the studio here, the Cave in 12 South, Nashville, Tennessee, with my pal Anthony Skinner, and he's going to be part of the conversation. Anthony, you all right?
I'm good to go, man. It's good to be with you here.
It is, man. It's really good to be here.
So we're going to talk about Anxiety Day. Why don't we start with the question of what it is? Let's begin there.
So maybe the best way for me to describe anxiety is to say that it's an excessive amount of worrying, even when there is no specific threat present.
All right, I'm going to pause and I'm going to hit rewind and then let y'all get that again. Okay.
Let's begin there.
So maybe the best way for me to describe anxiety is to say that it's an excessive amount of worrying, even when there is no specific threat present.
All right, what do you say? Excessive amount of worrying when there is no threat present. And I won't keep stopping it. However, if y'all want me to stop and rewind 15 seconds or whatever to get something, just wave at me or just tell me. When there is no threat present. All right, and this is a good definition. The next definition hit me like, all right, ready?
Okay. Or it's a disproportionate response to the actual risk that's at play. It's also, I think,
good. Disproportionate response.
The actual risk.
When there is no specific threat present. Okay. Or it's a disproportionate response to the actual risk that's at play. It's also, I think, like anxiety and worry is really challenging to control. And it shifts from one topic to another. Like you might be worried about finances, and then your worry goes to, why is my spouse late coming home from work? Are they okay? And then, you know, so it kind of bounces around.
Yes.
But it's this vague feeling of apprehension, right? But it's untethered to anything real, any real threat in the present moment. And the way it can manifest itself is in a couple of ways. One is it can come off as fatigue, which sort of surprises some people. For others, it's a restlessness or edginess. sometimes when I'm anxious, I'm fidgety, you
Mm,
know. Difficulty sleeping. A big one is impaired concentration, difficulty concentrating. And here's an interesting one too, increased muscle aches or soreness.
oh, wow.
And the reason for that is we clench when we're anxious,
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
right?
Yeah.
And so you get sore arms, a sore jaw,
Yeah.
lower back, whatever. Remember, it's like what Bessa Vanderkok says in his wonderful book, the body keeps the score,
Mhm.
whether it's from trauma, but even anxiety, depression, whatever your mood
Right.
state is, or whatever it is you're wrestling with, it's registering in the body.
That's right. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's good. Okay, so now we've talked about what it is.
Okay, quick question. Out of those, fatigue, restlessness, I just put insomnia, hard time sleeping, impaired concentration, and then sore or tense muscles. Which ones would you say how your anxiety shows up out of those 5?
Mine's fatigue, difficulty sleeping, and I clenched my jaw.
Okay.
So when he was talking about the muscles in your jaw or whatever.
And mine is 2, 3, and 4. Restlessness, insomnia, impaired concentration.
Mine is too, but then the sleeplessness turns into fatigue.
Yeah,
So
so that's-
it's one of
yes.
those, yes, but
Yeah, 'cause
mine is
you're
the
gonna-
sleeplessness first,
And
which
if you're
turns into,
restless and fidgety,
Yeah.
or you have impaired
which
concentration, you're thinking
then
about it.
turns into the impaired concentration. But for me, it's the restlessness and sleeplessness because those two impact others for me. But because then I don't feel like doing anything when I have all the anxiety because I'm overwhelmed, I shut down.
Right.
Which then in turn makes anxiety worse because it's just like I think of all the shit I didn't do because I shut down. And then like it's just a hamster wheel for me. Yeah.
It is.
Are
It's
you with
just
me,
a vicious
Jessica?
circle. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. We'll keep going.
So why don't we talk about your personal experience with anxiety? Can we talk about some of that?
Yes. And so I would just say that in lots of ways, I'm kind of an anxious person.
Okay.
Okay. And some of that has to do with upbringing and
Mhm.
probably some to do a little bit with genetics. I don't know.
Mhm.
Right. Back when I was, let me see, 27, I experienced a very bad depression. I had just gone into a 12-step recovery program around that time. My father had just died from alcoholism and drug addiction.
Mm.
I had any number of people in my life that were also going into recovery or to treatment, as well. And it was I had just gotten married. I mean, it was just so much going on. And I also had so much unacknowledged and unprocessed trauma from childhood.
Wow.
And it's just like I hit a wall.
Mhm.
I hit a wall. And my coping mechanism or my coping strategy, my chemical coping strategy was no longer available, right?
Mhm.
But a feature of the depression that made it hard to diagnose was it was major anxiety. I'm talking about anxiety with panic attacks.
Wow.
I don't know if you've ever had a panic attack, but it is scary, especially when
is
you
scary.
don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Right. And I would say that I'm a little bit of a worrier,
Mhm.
and this is typical of anxiety. It tends to take something that's going on in your life and it just amplifies it and makes it bigger
Mhm.
than it actually is,
Mhm.
right? It's the old making a mountain out of a molehill.
Right.
I can make, I mean, I call it catastrophizing or awfulizing, making something more awful than it is.
Yeah.
I'll tell you when it hits me sometimes is it wakes me up in the night, like at around 2:30.
Really?
It seems to be my witching hour is
Wow.
2:30. And I wake up and I just begin to worry about stuff in a way that I'm laying there going, this is a little psychotic,
Mhm.
because this is not what's happening,
Mhm.
So anxiety has played, it has played large in my life.
So you said 27. Had you had any therapy before that point?
No.
And so you just hit this major wall. You started
Mhm.
having panic attacks. Didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. And I was getting sober and here's the
Yeah.
other thing that's really important. I was very, very depressed.
Mhm.
Lots of times people who have lots of anxiety, panic episodes get diagnosed as having what's called generalized anxiety disorder.
Okay.
There are other things that could be though as well. It could be OCD, right?
Mhm.
A lot of anxiety comes with obsessive compulsive disorder.
Mhm.
It could also be just depression.
Mhm.
Like anxiety, we call it, major depression with anxiety.
Right,
And if you don't have a good doctor, a lot of times they'll say, oh, you just have anxiety,
right,
when actually it's depression with anxiety is a feature of it.
right, yeah,
So that's why I'm always telling people, if you have a mental illness problem, don't go to your GP,
right,
right? You need to go to somebody who, like, this is their game. You go
Yeah.
to a psychiatrist, you don't, or a psychopharmacologist. You don't go
yeah,
to a GP any more than you don't go to your GP when you need heart surgery either,
right,
right?
right,
You need to see a specialist.
yeah.
So anyway, that's sort of like a little bit of what it is. What
Okay.
about you? Have you had experiences where?
Oh yeah, I have. I remember going into the hospital. This has probably been, oh gosh, 10 years ago or so. I had had sort of a traumatic sort of exit from California back to Nashville, and ended up in the hospital thinking, is something wrong with my heart? Like, am
Right.
I about to have a heart attack?
Right.
Am I about to die? And it was just an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
And but it can manifest itself in ways
Mhm.
that are very physical and
Right.
can really make you think your life is about to be over.
Yeah. So that's a very extreme case of anxiety.
Yeah.
Most people just deal with anxiety, what I would call garden variety
Yeah.
anxiety,
Yeah.
that kind of is tidal, right? It
Yeah.
rolls in, it rolls out,
Yeah.
it may be around certain issues or whatever, but all human beings
Yeah.
wrestle
all
with anxiety.
That's right. Well, that's a good lead into my next question, because what I would like to do is go through each of the 9 types and talk about what the triggers are for those 9.
Okay, well, first, to be clear, there are multiple triggers.
Yeah.
Some are just based on history, regardless of type,
Okay.
right? In other words, if you saw someone get hit by a car when you were a little kid,
Yeah.
You may have an anxiety response, when you see a car go by too closely. You know what I mean?
Regardless of your type.
Regardless of your type, right? And I just want to talk about maybe one common trigger for each type, but this is not the only trigger,
Sure.
right? But this might be one that's common to the type. I think for ones, the improvers, it might be around what might be called moral uncertainty,
Okay.
right?
Talk
Because,
about that.
well, type ones are very concerned with being good,
Mhm.
right? They really want to be good. And their strategy for achieving goodness is by perfecting themselves, others, in the world,
Right.
right? They always want to do the right thing, and they want to live a life of integrity.
Mhm.
Integrity is a big theme for them, which means that they don't like moral grays,
Mm.
right?
That makes total sense.
They don't like grays in most of life. They're black and white thinkers. And so what they really want to know what's right and
Mhm.
what's wrong,
Okay.
right? What's correct
Mhm.
and what's mistaken.
Right.
So ambiguous situations can trigger anxiety for them,
That makes total sense.
right? And here's why. They're afraid of making the wrong choice
Mhm.
and then acting in a way that's inconsistent with their values and their high internal standards,
Mhm.
and also might hurt them or others.
Wow.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
So that will trigger anxiety.
So if they're at a job where they've been asked to do a task, but they don't necessarily have the clarity on how it's supposed to be done or what the success of that task might be, they might be triggered with some anxiety there.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 And again, on moral issues as well,
Mhm. Okay.
right? What's right? What's wrong?
Mhm.
And if it's a gray zone, it can create anxiety for them,
Yeah.
which can sometimes inspire one to make something black and white that actually is gray,
Correct. Wow. Okay.
which can also,
That's
which
good.
is a way of coping with it, but it's not always helpful,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All right, so twos.
Yeah.
All right, so we all know that one of the big unconscious motivations for two is being liked.
They want
So
to be liked.
they want to be liked. And so I would say that a major anxiety trigger for them is not being liked,
Mhm.
right? So they choose to derive their self-worth from their relationships and from seeing themselves as helpful and indispensable to other people.
Okay.
Okay, so they want to be liked, and then they become anxious when they feel unnoticed
Mhm.
or unappreciated.
Yeah.
by someone else whose needs they have invested a lot of time and energy in meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So then again, remembering that twos are the most interpersonal number on the Enneagram, it makes sense then that they also become anxious when there's rupture in relationships.
Yeah.
Like I have a friend of mine who's a two, and she says, if I've got a real or perceived rupture in a relationship, a breakdown in a relationship, it'll keep me up most of the night. And I will get up in the morning and my first order is, I got to fix this. It's
Right.
almost slightly panicky.
Yeah.
This relationship is in trouble, and, it spirals into panic, and they got to go fix it. And sometimes, by the way, separate topic, they can abandon themselves. Like they can sell the farm
Oh, wow.
in order to repair the relationship.
Yeah. Real or perceived.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about threes.
Well, threes really derive their self-worth from achieving results and winning the admiration of others.
Okay.
Right. So what does that mean? It means they feed on validation.
Okay.
Okay. And therefore they become anxious when their accomplishments go unnoticed. So not unappreciated, that's it too, but unnoticed. Okay. Now I said unnoticed with twos as well, but it's a different kind of not noticing. It's like not noticed in a way that the other would be impressed.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
They also feel, I think, anxious when the possibility of failure looms.
Okay.
Right. Like, for example, I have a friend of mine who is a three, and he turned down a job, a very big job, right? And it was a great opportunity, but it was a turnaround. And he felt like, there's just too much possibility for failure here.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember, it makes me think of, this has happened several times on our podcast, but we've had threes say they won't even play games with, when they get together with extended family, they won't even play games that they know they can't win.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
A lot of threes will do that.
Yeah.
And so I think for threes, the feeling of not being valued is so big, right? They want to be valued. And these are good things, right? Until they become overly, dominant in a person's life. I also know that for threes, something else that can trigger anxiety is when they lack clarity about what constitutes success. Or when they don't have measurable goals, like it's unclear what the end game is here, and that can lead them into either malaise or into sort of a very anxious state.
Wow.
So that's those wonderful threes, and how and that's, again, these are just a few,
just an example
type,
Yeah.
Giving sort of high level type specific things that might trigger anxiety. There's more that we get, and when we have our town hall, we'll get into the more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Type fours.
No anxiety.
Liar.
Well, listen, where do they get their self-esteem from? And by the way, when I talk about twos, threes, and fours, you're going to hear me use self-esteem and self-worth a lot, because I think they derive self-worth and self-esteem. That's a big issue for twos, threes, and fours, looking for sources of esteem outside themselves.
Yeah.
They get their self-esteem from projecting this very interesting and exceptional image. Like I tell you, I can get anxious when I feel like I'm beginning to be perceived as unexceptional, not successful, but exceptional.
I totally get that. Yeah.
So I think that fours want to be, and I've struggled with this, trying to figure out the language to use to describe what it is that fours want. I think fours, they really want to belong. They want to be seen. They want to be whole. They perceive themselves as being too fractured and lacking wholeness.
Yeah.
And they, like all the rest of us, they want to be loved, right? But they rely on projecting an image of specialness and uniqueness because they want to be seen as unique and complex and mysterious and, very creative in the eyes of others.
Yeah. I love how you differentiate between the why, the motivation, and the strategy, because sometimes those can get confused.
Yes, they can. And fours become anxious, I think, too, when they feel like there's no larger meaning or purpose in their work or in their personal lives. I get that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what does this all mean?
Yeah.
Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Does it really make a difference?
Yeah.
Am I leaving a mark on the world for goodness? And you know what I mean? Like,
Yes, that's
how does
right.
my little story fit into the larger narrative of what God is telling in the world? And so
100%.
if I am not sure that my life is meaningful or purposeful, I get anxious, right? And restless, really restless. Also, fours can be triggered into anxiety when they feel like they aren't making a unique contribution, like to an organization or to a particular circumstance. And here's a big one, brother. Fours can become real anxious at the first sign of abandonment or in a romantic or friendship relationship, or a romantic relationship or a friendship. And that they are so attuned to that possibility that they will see a threat that's not actually there. Thinking, okay, you're going to leave me, or this is going to be abandonment, right? It's going to be a re-experiencing of the abandonment I experienced as a child. Right?
Okay, fives.
Oh, man. I think for fives, these wonderful people rely on knowledge and competency, self-sufficiency, and dampening their emotional and material needs to feel safe in the world. Remember, fives, twos, threes, and fours, they're wrestling with issues around self-esteem, okay, worth and identity. 5, 6s, and 7s are dealing with issues around safety and security.
Right.
8, 9s, and 1s are dealing with issues around mastery and control. Okay, remind me to mention that when we get to them.
Okay.
So for fives, all this like competency, gathering information, dampening emotional and material needs, helps them fend off anxiety by being in the know all the time.
It's all an effort to feel safe.
Right.
Yeah.
And they do it like through researching and preparing for unforeseen situations. Not like a 6 would,
right?
But like, okay, I'm going to be with these many people today. I only have this much energy for that. I have this meeting, I need to prepare for this and that. They like predictability that way. So if an unforeseen situation comes up, it can create a lot of anxiety for them. Like if someone calls a meeting at the last second, fives can get real squirrely. Right. I wasn't banking on that. I wasn't prepared for that.
Right.
They don't want to look incompetent. Right. So they don't want to be in situations where
she need to go away. I'll pause.
Sorry, I'm listening. I'll be right back.
Oh, do you want me to pause? I can pause.
Yeah, give me just a second.
All right.
Sorry.
You're good.
So while she's paused, he's talking about the 2s, 3s, and 4s and the self-esteem and the self, all the things. I want you to see, like, it's just, I'm going to show you my board. Okay. Because I have it above my desk so that I can see it every day, right?
Good.
Do you see that? And on the back that I broke through, like I have chills right now.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So like when he said that, I don't know if you saw like the tears, like I had to move my glasses up because I was like, oh my gosh, like that totally hit me, that like it is all about the self-esteem and the
self-doubt.
For me. Yeah. The self. Yeah. So, all those things. But yes, if I would stop doubting myself, I could do more. And I realized that. But, it's a struggle. It's a work in progress.
It is. And you're doing a beautiful job on the journey, perfectly imperfect. And at least you're on the journey, right? Not in denial.
Yes. But I, like I said, I have it behind all my gala plaques. And so that way it's still there, but not hiding all my plaques.
You want to see mine?
Yeah.
The first it's got buried behind all my daggone books. All right here. Here it is. Done. All right. Now this right here, if this don't give you chills, I don't know. 'Cause this is before treatment. Okay.
Oh. Yep.
Is that not crazy?
Yep.
I think I've broken through. I have to continue to, but yeah.
Yes.
And
Oh, I love that. Well, I think you've broken through that. So good.
yeah. Okay. All right. Y'all ready?
Yes.
Yes, I apologize.
Do not apologize. You're good.
Surprising emotions could come up suddenly and overwhelm them.
Yeah.
They also don't want to be in situations where they could be outed as not prepared or in the know.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that's when, yeah, anxiety levels spike for fives.
Okay.
Right?
Let's go to the loyalists.
Well, you know,
Six.
it's not like anxiety isn't a big thing for this number. I mean, this is the number that really
It's a
struggles with
theme.
anxiety. It is a life theme for
Yeah.
sixes. So sixes, I think, feel safe and not anxious when they have a support system, like a belief system,
Mhm,
or a set of rules to follow,
mhm.
or traditions to follow. That
Mm.
would be another thing. And I think they ward off anxiety by forging really strong alliances, right? Looking to institutions and looking to others for advice and support. In the absence of these things, the sixes get anxious,
Mm,
right? They're already kind of buzzing with anxiety anyway.
right.
But if you take away any of these sort
This is a big deal with what you just said about your job, Jessica. Wow. Okay.
of supports,
Mhm,
right? Because you know what? Sixes don't want just safety and security. They want support.
yeah.
They also want certainty.
Yeah.
But they want to know that there's a belief system, a pastor, a boss,
Yeah.
a Tony Robbins, or somebody that's
Yeah.
going to give them answers to questions they didn't know they were even supposed to ask.
Yes. And it does operate like just a hum with them,
Mhm.
right? I mean, it
Yes.
seems to always be present. I just want to tell our listeners, our interview with Mike Alexander, who was a
Yes.
type 6, that was a really good interview for sixes. You should go back and check that one out if you haven't already heard it.
Yes. Also, I think with sixes, they don't like not knowing what's expected of them. In particularly in situations where they think something might go wrong.
Mhm.
That's like when sixes are always questioning you about something
Yeah.
and expressing doubt. You feel like they don't have confidence in you, but actually they're just trying to make sure that, what am I supposed to do if something goes wrong?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If they don't know, they can get real anxious.
It's such a game changer to know these things up because my son is a 6 and it's just helped our relationship so much. And I can appreciate his anxiety. So, all right, let's move to the 7s.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think for sevens, it's the fear that they won't be supported.
Mm,
So for sevens, the threat of deprivation,
Mhm.
experiencing it stresses them out, right? And what I mean by deprivation is, remember, gluttony is the passion,
yeah.
and they just don't want, they're always looking for something to fill an emptiness inside.
Yeah.
And if they feel deprived of those resources
Mhm.
to fill that emptiness inside, they panic.
What is the picture that you were talking about with?
Oh, the hungry ghost.
Yeah. Can you describe that?
Yeah. So we talked about with the minimalists.
Yeah.
So it's Carl Jung's sort of archetype. It's this creature with a very small mouth
Mhm.
and a super long, skinny neck
Uh-huh.
and a big fat belly. So it can't possibly get enough stuff into the mouth. It's too small,
Yeah.
and the neck is too skinny.
Yeah.
So it can't get, it's always in a state of deprivation.
Yeah.
Right. And no matter how much it puts in there, it won't go down into the emptiness.
It's such a great word picture for an unhealthy 7, but it gives you empathy, right?
Oh, I hope all the numbers have empathy for the other numbers.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So they become anxious when they can't find resources to satisfy their desires. Like I've seen this with sevens,
Fascinating.
when, it's a Saturday and there's nothing to do.
Mm.
And there's anxiety that comes up.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what am I going to do?
Right.
There's nothing on the calendar. I don't have enough stuff to put in my mouth.
Yeah.
To fill up the emptiness and the fear of boredom, stuckness. What a painful feelings. There's just this constant wanting to run from the present moment.
Yeah.
And partly because of the belief that the next moment contains something that this one doesn't, that will be better.
I'm getting anxious right now thinking about that 7.
Yeah, right. They also become anxious when other people place limitations on them.
Yes.
Like, oh, you can't do that. And the 7's like, well, what do you mean I can't do that?
Right.
I need to do that.
Yeah.
I need to eat that.
Yeah.
I need to go there. I need to do this risky thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like there's again, it's because they're worried from childhood that there will be no one there to help them work through pain should it arise.
And what about, I know with my daughter, and you've so helped me with this, but like my daughter who's a 7, when I'm going to have a difficult conversation with her, I am very aware that I say, hey, can we just have 10 minutes or 15 minutes?
Yeah, that's true. Difficult conversations create a lot of anxiety for 7s.
Mm-hmm.
Like I try never to tell a 7 in advance that I need to have a hard conversation with them because they will get anxious about it.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
really good.
And yeah, they can send them into a little bit. It's like, okay, we got bad feelings on the horizon.
Right.
I'd have been better off if you just surprised me with them.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go to 8s.
Yeah, the challengers. I think it's usually around threats to independence and control.
Okay.
8s, 9s, and 1s, issues around control and mastery.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? All of us need a healthy sense that we can control ourselves, control the other people, and control the environment, meaning that we can affect change, right? And a little person needs to know that very early on, right? You have agency, you have the ability to control certain situations and assert yourself, right? And to make things happen.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a good thing to have.
Sure.
Now, an 8 will over control the environment. 1s will over control their inner world, their animal instincts.
Yeah.
And 9s will not know what to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they're sort of asleep to this reality, right?
Right. Right. They actually don't even believe they can assert any control over the inner or outer world or make a difference in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think with 8s, the fear here is of betrayal. It's such a big theme in the life of 8s. Doesn't get enough press. And so when they over rely on someone or accidentally reveal too much of their heart to another person, it can trigger a lot of anxiety because they'll start to think like, well, what if that person betrays me? What if I show my heart, reveal my tenderness and my vulnerability and that innocent core? If I show too much of that, you'll see 8s frequently get angry at themselves for having kind of revealed too much of themselves in a public setting.
Wow.
Or to another person. It's like, God, how can I be that stupid? I gave too much away.
Yeah.
And it creates anxiety for them. And obviously, when they're not in control of the environment or other people, they can get anxious. Like we just had an interview with this gal, Allie.
Yeah.
Casaza, fabulous interview with a woman 8. And you could really pick up that theme.
Yeah.
She said, I want to be in control.
That's right. From a young age.
From a young age.
Yeah.
And that is really a way of, dealing with issues, that around control and mastery that have to be worked through.
Right. Yeah. Okay, let's go to 9s.
Oh, God bless the 9s. I think the anxiety usually is around inner or external conflict.
Okay.
Right. So, 9s want to maintain internal and environmental harmony, right? In the world or inside and outside. Like, I hear 9s all the time say, I just, like on Thanksgiving, it's like, I just don't know why people get worked up about so much. It's like, that's not that big a deal. Why can't we all just get along?
Right.
So they're just very worried. Now, 8s don't do that. They're a little bit juiced up that people are, sparking.
Yeah.
But the 9 is like, whoa, hey, everybody, let's get along. You know what I'm saying? Because it's disturbing their inner world.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't want that.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes it has to happen.
Right. So they try to control their external world to to keep their inner
Right.
world safe. And
Right.
calm.
And so maintaining internal and external world, making sure it's peaceful, and then making sure that their connection with others doesn't get interrupted, or they don't want to get disconnected.
Okay.
So obviously, conflict causes anxiety because it might lead to disconnection with somebody else. I think they also become anxious when they're pressured to make very quick decisions. Nines don't like to make quick decisions
Because they don't always know what they think or
they can
feel
be
about something,
ambivalent,
or
right? And they're also worried, well, what will this decision mean? If I decide to go right, will that disturb my inner calm more than the other way?
will I lose connection?
Will I lose connection with Bob because he wanted me to go left? And if I go left, is it going to make, so then they get stuck.
Yeah.
They're a little bit like sixes that way. They can get stuck with decision making for a different reason than sixes. Because they're just fearful that it's going to lead to disruption in relationship. And I also think they get anxious when their own desires and agenda threatens to disrupt relationships. Like it's coming up and they're like, I'm not sure if and that's when they start to narcotize and numb out. A lot of the time.
Wow. Okay.
What is that?
Well, and you mentioned
because they're just fearful that it's going to lead to disruption in relationship. And I also think they get anxious when their own desires and agenda threatens to disrupt relationships. Like it's coming up and they're like, I'm not sure if and that's when they start to narcotize and numb out. A lot of the time.
Wow. Okay. Well, and you mentioned earlier an acronym RAIN.
So I got this from Tara Brack, the teacher Tara Brack, and I find it very helpful. And we could talk about, I'm not, listen, I'm not entirely sure if every type has its own unique, way of dealing with anxiety, right? I think there are some universal principles true to all people. Maybe when we have the town hall, different types can share their own experience, because I am curious.
I love that idea.
I don't have all the answers. I'm not all the other 8 types. So, but RAIN is a great acronym, and I use this with all kinds of stuff. It's a little bit like SNAP, but it's got a few differences. All right. So the first R is just to recognize what's happening.
Okay.
Now, you can recognize when you're anxious, right? But just like recognizing it is important. It's just like naming it. Now, here's
that can be a big part of the process, right?
Yeah. Here's what's really important about that. That I want to encourage people to get their hands around. And that is, try not to say to yourself, oh, I'm anxious. Because then you're identifying with the feeling. It's like, no, you're not anxious. You're Anthony.
I love that.
Right? The better way to say it, and this is from a teacher named Joseph Goldstein, what you really should say is, oh, anxiety is here. Or anxiety is present right now.
Right.
Not I'm anxious. That's clinging too tightly to it.
Right.
And then
it's like the tar baby. You kind of, you said earlier, people tend to over-identify with their story of anxiety. And if you name I am anxious, you're kind of almost starting off at a negative.
Yes. And just say, no, anxiety is here right now. Sadness, you can do with other emotions that are difficult too. Like sadness is here, right? And sometimes you just say joy is here. And here's one of the reasons why. It's not forever. It's only here for,
that's right.
It's impermanent. Right. And so if you say I'm anxious, it feels more permanent and monolithic versus something that's just a temporary mind state.
That's right.
Right. So just recognize what's happening. Second one is allow. That's the A. Allow the experience to be there just as it is. This is so important because people think, I got to get rid of this anxiety. That's actually the worst thing you can do. Right. Instead, we tend to have 2 responses to negative feelings like anxiety. We try to push them away. We argue with them. We try to rationalize with them. Good luck rationalizing with anxiety. I shouldn't feel this way. You're worried about finances. I got $50 million in the bank. Why? It's like, no worry. The anxiety doesn't care about the facts.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's good.
Anxiety is like, forget the facts. This is what I'm feeling. Right.
Right.
So when you just allow the experience to be there, and I just tell people, with especially with anxiety, just to allow it and just breathe into it. Just breathe into it and just let it be as it is in the moment, recognizing that, this is going to pass.
Yeah.
Right. I is investigate with interest and care.
Okay.
So when I'm anxious, I'm there. I try not to push it away. I try to allow the experience to be there. And then I just investigate it. I get curious about it.
That's good.
Like, so anxiety, why have you chosen to visit me today?
Hmm.
Right.
That's a good question.
Or what?
I'm pausing for a second. Right there. Okay. Investigate with interest and care. So, anxiety or anger. Why? Just be curious. Ugh. What is it? Fascinated instead of frustrated. So good. All right.
It's the story that you're telling right now. Right. And the story might be, we're like, okay, I'll give you an example of this.
Yeah.
So I have a pattern in my life of being worried about financial insecurity.
Okay.
All right. Now, why? Well, I grew up in a family that was financially insecure, and there was always talk about money. My brother and sisters can remember hiding behind the couch when the landlord came to get the rent with my mother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, it was just, it was a roller coaster ride, right? For all of us. And, even though I'm comfortable and I don't have anything really to worry about, it comes up. You know what I mean? And so I recognize the anxiety around that. Or when anxiety comes up and then I allow it, then I can ask a question with care and concern. Hey man, like, what's the story you're telling right now? And
That's
it's
right.
like, well, this kind of goes back to being a kid. I know. And there's the compassion and the concern. And then, because I'll go down another road really fast.
Yeah.
I do believe that all of us have an inner child.
Yeah.
And I know that language, sometimes people roll their eyes and go, oh my gosh, therapy from the 70s. But no, people do have an inner child.
Yeah.
And your inner child is registering anxiety. You'll never hate your inner child into health, by saying bad dog, bad
That's
child,
so
right?
good. Yeah.
All you can really,
I gotta pause again. You'll never. It's not funny, but it's
Can you
so
can you
ridiculous.
replay that? Just that
Yeah,
little.
yeah. I'll go back. I'll
Okay.
just 30 seconds.
passion and the concern. And then, because I'll go down another road really fast.
Yeah.
I do believe that all of us have an inner child.
Yeah.
And I know that language, sometimes people roll their eyes and go, oh my gosh, therapy from the 70s. But no, people do have an inner child.
Yeah.
And your inner child is registering anxiety. You'll never hate your inner child into health, by saying bad dog, bad
That's
child,
so
right?
good. Yeah.
All you can really do is have interest and concern and say, babe. And so you say, baby, what's going on? Man? You all right?
Right.
Like, what's going on? Your little kid will say, I'm really scared about money right now.
Yeah.
And you say, well, and Anthony, this is one way to talk back to it. And this goes to the nurture with self-compassion thing. This is the end. You can then turn to that inner child and you say, I know why you feel that way. I remember those days too.
Yeah.
But I want you to know that you're not alone anymore, that I'm here, that I'm the adult now, and I'll take care of you.
Oh, that's so good.
And then some of that times that makes that little kid go, oh, like there's someone here to take care of me now. Yeah. I'm older now and I can make sure we're going to be okay.
I love that. And I love this acronym because underneath whatever anxiety you're feeling, there is a need, right? There's a need. And so to get to go from recognize to nurture and to be able to have a tool for that is really, really powerful.
Right. So recognize what's happening, to allow the experience to be there just as it is, investigate with interest and care, and then nurture with self-compassion.
That's great.
That's great for all types.
Yeah.
And it'll be easier for some types to do it than others.
Yeah.
But with practice, any type can do it.
Well, I can't wait till we do our town hall with everyone and talk through this.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
I'm a 4. I love talking about really happy topics like anxiety, depression, moral failure, anything like that.
Well, I would encourage people to think about what their triggers are and where they have maybe over-identified with their story of anxiety. That might be a good place for us to start.
Yes.
And people can come with their stories.
And I love what you said, because anxiety is a story we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
Just like depression is a story we tell ourselves. And knowing what the story is a big, big first step toward unwinding it.
Yeah.
And freeing ourselves from that mistaken story.
That's good. Well, thanks for taking us through these 9 types and talking about anxiety with us, and look forward to having everybody on the town hall.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see y'all.
Anthony Skinner,
Ian Cron, good to see you today.
live from the cave.
Y'all want me to stop recording? I'm going to stop in case I share this with somebody else just to listen to it. Okay.